Former Defense Secretary Robert Gates taking a direct hit at President Obama this morning, and the fallout is just getting started. Joining us right now is former DHS Secretary, the first one ever, and former Governor of Pennsylvania, Tom Ridge. And we're going to be talking about security, but Mr. Secretary, it's always great to see you, Governor. I'd just like to get your take about a sitting president being criticized or a tell-all book by his former Secretary of Defense while he's in office. Do you have a problem with that?
Personally, I don't. I mean, it's a decision that obviously Secretary Gates made. I mean, let's not forget, I think he's a remarkable public servant. He began in a Republican administration, transferred to a Democrat administration. I think initially he stayed for transition purposes and to continue the restructuring, but began probably under Secretary Rumsfeld. He then resigns, and frankly, this is an administration that talked about transparency and the fact that the Secretary of Defense has made his views public in this transparent administration. I don't have any problem with that at all.
Governor, I remember you, if I'm correct, you fought in Vietnam. And I think I remember the fact that you used to trust the fact that you have officers who are following commands from their officers who are getting commands from the White House. Does it disturb you that the former Secretary of Defense's conclusion was that this president didn't respect our military officers?
Well, you know, I haven't read the book, and I'm going to just take your assessment as being appropriate, as consistent with what they said in the book. And I've always been troubled by the fact that there have been many people in leadership in this country, I think, over the years who haven't really truly respected, other than rhetorical support, and frankly, this goes on both sides of the aisle, the men and women in uniform. And frankly, I think we give them a lot of public accolades, which we should. We've learned to distinguish between the war and the warrior, but frankly, I still don't think we take good enough care of these men and women when they come back from overseas. And that goes on both sides of the aisle.
Exactly. Governor, let's talk about one of your real expertise, first Homeland Security Secretary. Big conference there. What should Americans know about the threat? What about cybersecurity as it compares to al-Qaeda?
Well, I think they're both threats, and they're both with us forevermore. I mean, when it comes to cyber, Brian, I think we live in what I call the digital forevermore. It's not as if there's a potential threat. The threat exists. It's a 24/7 threat. And as we've seen over the holidays, it affects the commercial sector and government sector. And it's like anything else, you need to be prepared for it. You need to build a resilient infrastructure. And frankly, the companies have to pay a lot more attention at the C-suite level to make sure that they are prepared to deal with it, because it's happening every day. The actors are smarter. The technology changes. It is a business risk to your brand, to your bottom line. And as we well know, the actors from nation states to organized crime and everybody else hit governments as well. So that's the digital forevermore. That's a permanent condition of doing business and running government. The flip side in al-Qaeda, you know, you kind of take a look at what's going over in the Middle East. And what we know about al-Qaeda, when there's chaos and instability, they'll slide in. And in the midst of the Sunni-Shia conflict, they've slid in. But one of the things that I find interesting is the public comments about the Middle East. Nobody's talking about Iran. So if you want to know, in my judgment, the basic source of the instability, it's Iran. Iran has helped destabilize Iraq. I mean, frankly, Iran has more credibility in Iraq right these days than I think we do. They support Hezbollah. That's the problem in Lebanon. Al-Qaeda slides into Lebanon. They send troops and arms to Syria. Al-Qaeda slips into Syria. So at the epicenter of this instability is Iran, and Al-Qaeda is taking advantage of it.
So you set up the color coding for this country on what the level threat would be. Right now, from the outsider perspective, from what you see, what should the color code be?
Well, we've abandoned that. And so I'm not going to relate to a color. I'm going to just simply say that there are two permanent conditions in the world today, and that is the ongoing threat of radical Islam in this country, elsewhere, and the digital forevermore, where we don't even think it's not a threat. It's with us all the time. Gotcha. We're getting attacked every day. Those are two permanent conditions that the world's going to have to live with for a long, long time.
And I'm glad you're part of this conference, getting people together, experts together, to come up with the best way to keep this country safe in their households and as a nation. Thanks so much, Governor, for joining us.
Great being with you, Brian. Thank you very much.
All right.